1. We're taking a closer look at a classic beauty, a 1970 Buick Riviera that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This coupe is a real head-turner with its custom paint job, but let's dive into the details to see what's under the hood. First off, the seller is asking $9,500 for this Riviera, which seems like a fair price considering the work that's been done. The car is powered by a mighty 455 engine, and the seller claims it's mechanically sound and runs great. That's always a G sign when you're dealing with a classic car. Now let's talk about the condition. The seller admits that the body is in fair condition, with the paint being faded and some rust present, particularly under the vinyl top. The interior is also described as fair. But here's the thing. The seller says it wouldn't take much to make this Riviera look fantastic. With a little TLC, this classic could be a real showstopper. The seller has recently done some work on the car, including a complete brake job with new brake lines, a new carburetor, and a complete exhaust system. It's always reassuring to know that some maintenance has been done, especially on an older vehicle. One thing to note is that the odometer is broken, so the true mileage is unknown. The ad states that the odometer reads 120,000, but that could be way off. It's something to keep in mind if you're seriously considering this car. Overall, this 1970 Buick Riviera seems like a solid project car for someone who loves classic American muscle. It's got a powerful engine, a custom paint job, and a fair asking price. Sure, it needs some work, but that's part of the fun of owning a classic car. If you're up for a little restoration and want a cool cruiser to show off at car meets, this Riviera could be the one for you. Just remember, the seller says the price is firm, so don't expect to negotiate too much. And as always, be sure to inspect the car thoroughly before making any decisions. 2. We've got a real treat for you. A 1963 Pontiac Bonneville convertible that's looking for a new home. This beauty is being offered on Craigslist for $12,800, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like it could be a great deal for the right buyer. First things first, let's talk about the condition. The seller doesn't mention anything about the body or paint, so we'll assume it's in decent shape for a car that's almost 60 years old. The floors are said to be perfect, which is a big plus for a classic car. However, the seller does mention that this Bonneville is a cruiser, so it might not be concours ready, but it should be more than presentable for weekend drives and local car shows. Now let's get to the good stuff, the mechanicals. The seller has just spent a whopping $3,700 going over the engine, and they claim it's running like a top. That's a huge selling point for a classic car, as engine work can be incredibly expensive. They've also replaced a bunch of wear items like the tires, brakes, pumps, alternator, and hoses. It's always good to see a seller who's invested in maintaining their classic car. Under the hood, you'll find the original 389 V8 engine, which is mated to an automatic transmission. The seller says it runs perfectly, so you should be able to hop in and cruise without any issues. Another big plus is that this Bonneville is a one-owner car with a clean title in hand. It's always nice to know the history of a classic car, and having just one owner means it's likely been well cared for over the years. The convertible top is said to be in good condition, which is great news for those sunny weekend cruises. And being a California car, you shouldn't have to worry too much about rust issues. All in all, this 1963 Pontiac Bonneville convertible seems like a solid choice for someone who wants a classic cruiser that's ready to hit the road. The seller has put in the work to make sure it's mechanically sound, and the one-owner history is a big bonus. If the body and paint are in good shape, this could be a great buy at $12,800. As always, be sure to inspect the car thoroughly before making any decisions, and don't be afraid to ask the seller for more details or additional photos. 3. We've got a unique find on Craigslist, a 1982 GMC Caballero Amarillo truck that's up for grabs for $7,500. This isn't your average pickup, so let's dive into the details and see what makes this Caballero special. First off, let's talk about the restoration. The seller mentions that this truck underwent a restoration over 15 years ago, which is a good sign. It means that someone has put time and effort into bringing this Caballero back to life. However, keep in mind that a lot can happen in 15 years, so it's important to inspect the truck thoroughly to see how well the restoration has held up. The seller describes the body as nice, but admits that there is some rust around the rear quarter panels. Rust is always a concern with older vehicles, so it's good to see that the seller is upfront about it. The underside of the truck is said to be very solid, which is a big plus. A solid frame and undercarriage are crucial for the longevity of any vehicle. Now let's talk about the heart of this beast, the engine. This Caballero is powered by a 350 engine, which is a classic Chevy small block V8. The seller has made some nice upgrades, including an Edelbrock intake manifold, headers, and a Holley carburetor. These modifications should give the engine a little extra kick and improve its overall performance. The seller also mentions that the alternator and power steering pump have been recently replaced, which shows that they've been keeping up with maintenance. The transmission is an automatic, which makes this Caballero a great choice for cruising around town or hitting the highway. The dual exhaust system should give it a nice, throaty sound that's sure to turn heads. One thing to note is the odometer reading, 70,387 miles. While this is relatively low for a vehicle of this age, keep in mind that the truck has been restored. It's possible that the odometer was reset during the restoration, so the actual mileage may be higher. The paint color is listed as black, which is a classic choice for a truck like this. Black always looks sleek and stylish, but it also shows imperfections more easily than lighter colors. Be sure to inspect the paint closely to see how well it's held up over the years. Overall, this 1982 GMC Caballero Amarillo truck seems like a solid choice for someone who wants a unique and stylish pickup with some nice performance upgrades. The restoration work and recent maintenance are definite pluses, but the rust and unknown true mileage are things to keep in mind. 4. We've got a real treat for you. A 1967 Ford Mustang that's been heavily modified and is ready to tear up the streets. This pony car is being offered on Craigslist for $14,000, and from the looks of it, it's got a lot to offer for the price. First off, let's talk about the heart of this beast, the engine. The seller has swapped out the original motor for a beefy 427-stroker V8 that was built from a 351 Windsor block. This is a serious upgrade that should give this Mustang some serious power. The seller doesn't mention any specific performance numbers, but with a stroker motor like this, you can expect it to be quick. To handle all that power, the seller has paired the engine with a 5-speed Tremec T5 transmission and a Ram 98794 mechanical clutch. The flywheel has been freshly resurfaced, and there's a new throwout bearing, so the clutch should be nice and smooth. The 8 rear diff has a 2.83 ratio and is an open setup, which should be great for cruising and occasional spirited driving. The seller mentions that this Mustang has power steering and power drum brakes, which is a nice touch for a car of this age. However, they also note that there's no air conditioning, so keep that in mind if you plan on driving this car in the summer heat. Now let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as good, but doesn't go into a lot of detail. The paint color is listed as blue, but there are no photos showing the entire car, so it's hard to get a sense of the overall condition. As always, it's important to inspect the car thoroughly in person before making any decisions. The VIN decoding shows that this Mustang was originally a 6-cylinder model with a 3-speed manual transmission. It was built at the Dearborn MI plant and was originally painted Wimbledon white with a red crinkle vinyl interior. The original rear gear ratio was 3.20, and it was sold through the Indianapolis District Sales Office. Overall, this 1967 Ford Mustang seems like a great choice for someone who wants a classic pony car with some serious performance upgrades. The 427-stroker motor and 5-speed transmission should make this car a blast to drive, and the power steering and brakes are nice modern touches. The lack of air conditioning and unknown overall condition are things to keep in mind, but for $14,000, this could be a great project car or weekend cruiser. 5. We've got a real piece of American luxury automotive history up for grabs on Craigslist, a 1960 Lincoln Continental Mark V. This massive coupe is being offered for $13,000, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like it could be a great buy for someone looking for a classic cruiser. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as good and mentions that the car is very solid. They also say it runs like a champ, which is always a good sign for a classic car. However, keep in mind that good can mean different things to different people. So it's always important to inspect the car thoroughly in person before making any decisions. The seller does mention that this Continental is their project car, so it's possible that there are some unfinished or ongoing projects that will need to be addressed. They're selling it to free up some cash for a new property purchase, so it's likely that they've put some work into the car during their ownership. Now let's talk about the specs. This Continental is powered by a massive 8-cylinder engine, which should provide plenty of smooth, effortless power. The transmission is an automatic, which is perfect for a car like this that's meant for cruising in style. The odometer shows 74,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car of this age. But again, it's important to verify the accuracy of the odometer reading. The paint color is listed as white, which is a classic choice for a car like this. White always looks clean and elegant, especially on a big, stately car like a Continental. The seller doesn't mention anything about the interior, so that's something you'll want to check out in person. One thing to keep in mind with a car like this is its size. The seller mentions that it's a real boat on the road and large and in charge. So be prepared for a driving experience that's quite different from a modern car. Parking and maneuvering in tight spaces may take some getting used to, but that's all part of the charm of driving a classic land yacht like this. Overall, this 1960 Lincoln Continental Mark V seems like it could be a great choice for someone who appreciates classic American luxury cars. The seller's description suggests that it's in good shape and runs well. But as with any classic car, a thorough inspection is always recommended. If the condition checks out and the price is right, this could be a great way to experience the grandeur and style of a bygone era. 6. We've got a real treat for you. A 1973 Cadillac Eldorado convertible that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This iconic land yacht is being offered for just $8,000, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like it could be a great deal for someone looking for a classic cruiser. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as good, which is always a positive sign. They mention that the car starts, runs, drives, and stops, which are the basic functions you want in any vehicle. The seller also notes that the top functions perfectly, which is a big plus for a convertible. However, keep in mind that good can mean different things to different people. So it's always important to inspect the car thoroughly in person before making any decisions. Now, let's talk about the specs. This Eldorado is powered by a massive 500 cubic inch engine, which is a 8.2-liter V8. That's a whole lot of power, and it should provide plenty of smooth, effortless acceleration. The transmission is an automatic, which is what you'd expect in a big, luxurious car like this. The odometer shows 88,529 miles, which is relatively low for a car of this age, but again, it's important to verify the accuracy of the odometer reading. The paint color is listed as white, which is a classic choice for a car like this. White always looks clean and elegant, especially on a big, stately car like an Eldorado. The seller doesn't mention anything about the interior, so that's something you'll want to check out in person. One interesting thing to note about this Eldorado is that it's a front-wheel drive car. Cadillac switched to front-wheel drive for the Eldorado in 1967, which was a big departure from the traditional rear-wheel drive layout of most American cars at the time. This can give the Eldorado a different driving feel compared to other classic cars, but it also helps to maximize interior space and improve traction in slippery conditions. The seller mentions that this is an end-of-year sale and that they're asking $8,000 cash only. That could be a great deal for a classic Eldorado in good condition, but as always, it's important to do your due diligence and inspect the car thoroughly before making any decisions. Overall, this 1973 Cadillac Eldorado convertible seems like it could be a great choice for someone who appreciates classic American luxury cars. The seller's description suggests that it's in good shape and runs well, but as with any classic car, a thorough inspection is always recommended. If the condition checks out and the price is right, this could be a great way to experience the style and presence of a true American land yacht. 7. We've got a real gem for you. A 1987 Ford Mustang GT that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic Fox body Stang is being offered for $8,500, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like it could be a great find for someone looking for a clean stock example of this iconic muscle car. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as good, which is always a positive sign. They don't mention any major issues or damage, so it seems like this Mustang has been well cared for. However, as with any used car, it's always important to inspect it thoroughly in person before making any decisions. Now, let's talk about the specs. This Mustang GT is powered by the legendary 5.0-liter V8 engine, which is paired with a 5-speed manual transmission. This combination is a favorite among Mustang enthusiasts, as it provides plenty of power and an engaging driving experience. The seller mentions that the clutch, pressure plate, flywheel, throwout bearing, and pilot bearing have all been replaced, which is a big plus. A new clutch system ensures that the car should shift smoothly and reliably. The seller also mentions that the car has new tires, which is another great sign. Fresh rubber is important for both safety and performance, so it's good to know that this Mustang is riding on new shoes. The seller also has brand new exterior molding for the doors and extra wheels that can go with the car, which could be a nice bonus for the new owner. The odometer shows just 1,262 miles, which is incredibly low for a car of this age. However, it's important to verify the accuracy of the odometer reading and to check for any signs that the odometer may have been rolled back. The paint color is listed as red, which is a classic choice for a Mustang. Red always looks bold and sporty, and it really makes the car stand out. The seller doesn't mention anything about the interior, so that's something you'll want to check out in person. One thing to note is that the seller mentions that these cars are getting harder to find, which is true. Fox body Mustangs have a dedicated following, and clean, stock examples like this one are becoming increasingly rare. The seller is selling the car because they need the space, which could be a great opportunity for someone looking to add a classic Mustang to their collection. Overall, this 1987 Ford Mustang GT seems like it could be a great find for someone who appreciates classic American muscle cars. The seller's description suggests that it's in good shape and has been well maintained, with recent upgrades to the clutch system and tires. As with any used car, a thorough inspection is always recommended, but if the condition checks out, this could be a great way to experience the thrill of driving a classic 5.0 Mustang. 8. We're diving into a classic beauty that's up for grabs on Craigslist, a 1968 Ford Galaxie 500 XL convertible. This ride is a real head-turner with its fresh, eye-catching burgundy red paint job that cost a whopping $8,000. You'll be cruising in style, no doubt about it. Now, let's talk about what's under the hood. This Galaxie is packing a powerful 390 engine, ready to roar to life. And with a brand new battery, you won't have to worry about any starting troubles. It's a rear-wheel drive beast that runs on good old gasoline. The seller mentions that the car is in good condition overall, but there are a couple of things to keep in mind. The convertible top needs some TLC, and there are a few finishing touches left to make this classic truly shine. But hey, that's part of the fun of owning a vintage ride, right? As for the nitty-gritty details, this Galaxie has a clean title and an automatic transmission, making it a breeze to drive. And with 8 cylinders under the hood, you'll have plenty of power at your disposal. Now let's talk price. The seller is asking $13,000 for this beauty. While it may seem a bit steep at first glance, keep in mind the cost of that brand new paint job and the potential this car has. With a little elbow grease and some love, this Galaxie could be a real showstopper. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to do your due diligence. Take it for a test drive, have a mechanic check it out, and make sure everything is in working order before signing on the dotted line. All in all, if you're looking for a classic convertible with a ton of potential, this 1968 Ford Galaxie 500 XL might just be the ride for you. 9. We've got a real treat for you, a 1980 Cadillac DeVille that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic beauty is a true representation of American luxury from the 80s, and it's ready to find a new home. First things first, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $6,550 for this DeVille, which is a fair price considering all the extras that come with it. But more on that later. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 6.0L Cadillac engine that purrs like a kitten. The seller mentions that the vehicle runs just fine and starts up every time, so you won't have to worry about any reliability issues. It's a rear-wheel drive beast that runs on good old gasoline, and with 8 cylinders, you'll have plenty of power to cruise down the highway in style. Now let's talk about the condition. The seller states that the car is in good condition, and from the looks of it, they're not exaggerating. The paint is described as okay, and the interior is a beautiful burgundy maroon color that's sure to turn heads. The seller even mentions that the interior is beautiful, so you know they take pride in this ride. But here's where things get really interesting. This DeVille comes with a ton of extras that make it stand out from the rest. First off, it's got a set of JL 12-inch subwoofers in the box with 2 amps, so you can bump your favorite tunes while cruising down the road. It also comes with a set of black 13-inch wheels, as well as the stock wheels that are in 95% condition. But wait, there's more. This DeVille also has all the luxury features you'd expect from a Cadillac, including cruise control, alloy wheels, and pillow seats. And if you're worried about paperwork, don't be. The seller mentions that the car comes with current registration, plates on the car, and a clean title, pink slip. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the mileage. The odometer reads 146,036 miles, which may seem like a lot at first glance. However, it's important to keep in mind that this is a classic car, and with proper maintenance, it can still have plenty of life left in it. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic Cadillac that's loaded with extras and has a clean title, this 1980 DeVille is definitely worth checking out. Just be sure to do your due diligence, take it for a test drive, and have a mechanic inspect it before making any final decisions. 10. We've got a real gem for you, a 1964 Ford Galaxie 500 that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic beauty is a true time capsule, still all original from the day it rolled off the assembly line. First things first, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $9,000 for this Galaxie, which is a fair price considering its condition and originality. The seller even mentions that they almost sold the car for $11,000, so you know it's a sought-after ride. Under the hood, you'll find a 289 V8 engine that's ready to roar to life. It's paired with a 2-speed automatic transmission, making it a breeze to drive. And with rear-wheel drive, you'll feel the power at your fingertips. Now let's talk about the features. This Galaxie comes loaded with power options, including a power driver's seat, power brakes, and power steering. It also has coil-over rear shocks, which provide a smooth and comfortable ride. But here's where things get really interesting. This Galaxie comes with not one, but 2 sets of wheels and tires. You'll get the 4 original rims, tires, and hubcaps, as well as a set of Craigslist wheels that give the car a more modern and sporty look. The seller even includes the lug nuts for the Craigslist, so you'll have everything you need to switch up the style. The seller states that the car is in good condition, and from the looks of it, they're not exaggerating. The black paint is sleek and shiny, and the interior looks well maintained. With only 79,000 miles on the odometer, this Galaxie has plenty of life left in it. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the fact that this is a 4-door model. While some collectors may prefer the 2-door version, it's important to keep in mind that this Galaxie is still a rare and desirable find. Plus, the extra doors make it more practical for those who want to take their family or friends along for the ride. If you're interested in this 1964 Ford Galaxie 500, the seller encourages you to call rather than text or email. They even provide their phone number in the ad, so don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or want to schedule a test drive. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic car that's all original and loaded with features, This 1964 Ford Galaxy 500 is definitely worth checking out. Just be sure to act fast, as it's sure to attract plenty of attention from other enthusiasts. 11. We've got a real treat for you. A 1964 Plymouth Valiant that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic beauty has been lovingly restored and is ready to hit the road for its next adventure. First things first, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $4,500 for this Valiant, which is a steal, considering the work that's been put into it. But more on that later. Under the hood, you'll find a rebuilt 3.7 slant-6 engine that's ready to roar to life. The seller mentions that the car runs amazing and is easy to drive, so you won't have to worry about any performance issues. It's a gas-powered beast that's ready to take on the open road. Now let's talk about the features. One of the coolest things about this Valiant is the relocated floor shifter, which gives it a sporty and modern feel. It's also got an automatic transmission, making it a breeze to drive for anyone, regardless of their experience level. But here's where things get really interesting. The seller mentions that this Valiant is in really good shape for a 1964 model. That's a testament to the care and attention that's been put into restoring this classic car. From the looks of it, you'd never guess that it's over 50 years old. The odometer reads just 46,246 miles, which is incredibly low for a car of this age. That means you'll have plenty of miles left to enjoy this beauty on the road. Now let's talk about the potential for trades. The seller mentions that they may be open to trading for a Harley or other items of equal value. So if you've got something cool to offer up, don't hesitate to reach out and see if a deal can be made. Of course, if you prefer to pay cash, the seller is asking a fair price of $4,500. They even mention that it's a good cash price, so keep that in mind when making an offer. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic car that's been lovingly restored and is ready to hit the road, this 1964 Plymouth Valiant is definitely worth checking out. With its rebuilt engine, relocated floor shifter, and low mileage, it's a rare find that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. 12. We've got a real gem for you, a 1970 Buick Skylark that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic muscle car is a rare find and has been upgraded with some serious performance parts that will make any gearhead drool. First things first, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $14,000 for this Skylark, which may seem steep at first glance. But when you consider all the upgrades and the rarity of this car, it's actually a pretty fair price. Under the hood, you'll find a 350 Stage 1 engine that's ready to roar. The seller has added a full MSD ignition system, chrome valve covers and breathers, and a Holley 4-barrel carb to make this beast even more powerful. And with long tube headers and a full Flowmaster exhaust system, this Skylark sounds as good as it looks. But the upgrades don't stop there. This Skylark has been fitted with a floor shift conversion and 4-wheel disc brakes for improved handling and stopping power. The seller has also installed a brand new full cooling system with dual electric fans to keep everything running cool and smooth. Now let's talk about the exterior. The paint is a custom color that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. And with brand new Toyo tires over custom fuel revolvers, this Skylark has a stance that's both aggressive and stylish. The seller even mentions that they spent over $3,500 on the wheel and tire package alone. The interior of this Skylark is just as impressive as the exterior. The seller doesn't go into too much detail, but from the looks of it, everything appears to be in excellent condition. Now let's address the elephant in the room: the title. The seller mentions that this Skylark has a salvage title, which may be a red flag for some buyers. However, it's important to keep in mind that a salvage title doesn't necessarily mean the car is in poor condition. It could have been salvaged for a variety of reasons, such as theft or damage that has since been repaired. The seller also mentions that the car has current tags and registration and that they have the title in hand. So, if you're interested in this Skylark, be sure to ask the seller about the history of the car and the reason for the salvage title. Overall, if you're in the market for a rare and powerful muscle car that's been upgraded with some serious performance parts, this 1970 Buick Skylark is definitely worth checking out. With only 81,000 miles on the odometer and a host of upgrades, This car is ready to hit the road and turn heads wherever it goes. 13. We've got an interesting find for you. A 1974 Buick Apollo that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic ride is the Buick equivalent of the Chevy Nova, and it's got a lot of potential for the right buyer. First things first, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $3,000 or best offer for this Apollo, which is a fair starting point considering the condition and the work that needs to be done. But more on that later. Under the hood, you'll find a Buick 350 engine that's in need of some TLC. The seller mentions that the motor turns over and will start, but it has a bad head gasket and knocks, so it needs a complete rebuild or swap. This is definitely a project car, but for the right mechanic or enthusiast, it could be a fun and rewarding undertaking. The good news is that the body of this Apollo is solid, which is a big plus for a car of this age. The seller has also installed a new vinyl top and new tires, so you won't have to worry about those right away. The interior of this Apollo is in good shape, with normal wear on the driver's seat. It's not perfect, but it's definitely usable as is. Now, let's talk about the transmission. The seller mentions that the automatic transmission is good, which is a relief for anyone who doesn't want to deal with a manual. The odometer reads 128,703 miles, which is not too bad for a car that's almost 50 years old. Of course, with a rebuild or swap, you'll be starting fresh on the engine, so the mileage may not be as much of a concern. The paint color is yellow, which is a classic 70s hue that's sure to turn heads. And with a clean title, you won't have to worry about any legal issues when it comes time to register the car. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. The fact that this Apollo needs a complete engine rebuild or swap. This is not a job for the faint of heart, and it will require a significant investment of time and money. However, if you're up for the challenge and have the skills, or know someone who does, this could be a really fun project car. The seller also mentions that the car comes with some extra parts, including a grille, which could come in handy during the rebuild process. One thing to keep in mind is that this Apollo will need to be towed or trailered, as it's not currently drivable. So if you're not local to the seller, you'll need to factor in the cost of transportation when making an offer. 14. We've got a real treat for you, a 1976 Ford Ranchero that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic pickup is a rare find and has been well maintained over the years, making it a great option for anyone looking for a reliable and stylish ride. First things first, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $4,150 or best offer for this Ranchero, which is a fair price considering the condition and the low mileage. But more on that later. Under the hood, you'll find a 351 Windsor V8 engine that's paired with a 2-barrel carburetor. This combination provides plenty of power and torque for hauling or cruising down the highway. And with rear-wheel drive, you'll have the classic pickup truck experience. One of the most impressive things about this Ranchero is the low mileage. The seller mentions that it has only 80,000 original miles, which is incredibly low for a vehicle that's over 40 years old. This is a testament to the care and maintenance that the previous owners have put into this truck. The exterior of this Ranchero is finished in a classic white paint that looks great and will never go out of style. The seller doesn't mention any major dents or rust, so it seems like the body is in good condition overall. Inside, you'll find a split bench seat that's perfect for cruising with a passenger or hauling extra cargo. The seller also mentions that the air conditioning is working, which is a huge plus for those hot summer days. Another great feature of this Ranchero is the Posy traction rear end. This provides better traction and handling, especially in slippery conditions or when hauling heavy loads. The seller mentions that this Ranchero is all original, which is a big selling point for collectors and enthusiasts. It's rare to find a classic vehicle that hasn't been modified or altered in some way, so this is definitely a plus. Now let's talk about the title. The seller mentions that this Ranchero has a clean title, which means there are no major accidents or damage reported. This is important for anyone looking to register and insure the vehicle. Of course, as with any used vehicle, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making a purchase. The seller doesn't mention any major issues or problems, but it's still a good idea to have a mechanic take a look and make sure everything is in good working order. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic pickup truck with low mileage and plenty of style, this 1976 Ford Ranchero is definitely worth checking out. With its powerful V8 engine, working air conditioning, and all original condition, it's a rare find that's sure to turn heads wherever it goes. 15. We've got a real gem for you. A 1953 Chrysler Windsor that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This vintage beauty is a rare find and has been well preserved over the years, making it a great option for anyone looking for a classic car project. First things first, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $10,000 or best offer for this Windsor, which may seem a bit steep at first glance. However, when you consider the rarity and condition of this vehicle, it's actually a pretty fair price. The seller mentions that this Windsor is super clean inside and out, which is a huge plus for a car that's nearly 70 years old. It's rare to find a classic car in such good condition, so this is definitely a selling point. Under the hood, you'll find a 6-cylinder engine that's paired with a manual transmission. This combination was common for cars of this era and provides a classic driving experience. The seller mentions that the car is non-running, so it will need some work to get it back on the road. However, this could be a great opportunity for someone who loves a good project and wants to bring this beauty back to life. The exterior of this Windsor looks to be in great shape, with no major dents or rust mentioned. The seller doesn't provide any photos, so it's hard to say for sure, but based on the description, it seems like the body is solid. Inside, the seller mentions that the car is all original, which is another big selling point for collectors and enthusiasts. It's rare to find a classic car that hasn't been modified or altered in some way, so this is definitely a plus. The odometer reads just 39,000 miles, which is incredibly low for a car of this age. Of course, with a non-running vehicle, the mileage may not be as much of a concern, but it's still a good indication of how well preserved this car is. Now let's talk about the title. The seller mentions that this Windsor has a clean title, which means there are no major accidents or damage reported. This is important for anyone looking to register and insure the vehicle. One thing to keep in mind is that this Windsor is a project car and will need some work to get it back on the road. The seller doesn't provide any details about what specifically needs to be done, so it's important to ask questions and get as much information as possible before making an offer. Another thing to consider is that the buyer will need to pick up the car, as the seller is not offering delivery. This may not be an issue for local buyers, but it's something to keep in mind if you're not in the area. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic car project with a ton of potential, this 1953 Chrysler Windsor is definitely worth checking out. With its clean title, low mileage, and all original condition, it's a rare find that's sure to turn heads once it's back on the road. 16. We've got a real treat for you. A rare and seldom seen 1967 Ford Fairlane Ranchero that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This vintage beauty is a one-year-only model with the desirable stacked front headlights, making it a true collector's item. First things first, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $14,000 for this Ranchero, which may seem a bit steep at first glance. However, when you consider the rarity of this model and the amount of work that's been put into it, it's actually a pretty fair price. The seller mentions that they had a ton of work done to this Ranchero by Ken at Acme Auto last year to the tune of $8,564. That's a significant investment, and it shows that the seller was planning on keeping this beauty for the long haul. The receipts for the work are included in the pictures, so you can see exactly what was done. Under the hood, you'll find a Ford 302 CI engine that was swapped in at some point. The seller mentions that it starts up on the first key turn and purrs like a kitten. It's not a race car, but it's perfect for cruising around town or taking to local car shows. The exterior of this Ranchero is finished in a beautiful blue paint that's sure to turn heads. The seller does mention a few small paint issues, but there's no metal damage, which is a huge plus for a car of this age. The addition of the 5-spoke American racing rims and new tires really sets this Ranchero apart and gives it a cool, custom look. Inside, the seller doesn't provide any details. but based on the overall condition of the car, it's safe to assume that the interior is in good shape as well. One of the coolest things about this Ranchero is that it's exempt from smog testing, which is a huge plus for anyone who lives in an area with strict emissions regulations. And with only 4,900 miles on the odometer, this beauty has plenty of life left in her. The seller mentions that they love to talk to people who know what a cool, rare car this is, and it's easy to see why. The 1967 Ford Fairlane Ranchero is a true collector's item that's sure to appreciate in value over time. Of course, as with any used vehicle, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making a purchase. The seller seems to have taken good care of this Ranchero, but it's still a good idea to have a mechanic take a look and make sure everything is in good working order. 17. We've got a real classic up for grabs on Craigslist, a 1977 Chevy Corvette Stingray. This beauty is a real head-turner with its custom red paint job and bold black racing stripes. It's got that iconic Corvette style that never goes out of fashion. Now, let's talk about the nitty-gritty. The seller is being straight up with us. This Vetta is in fair condition and currently not running. The engine block is inside, but it's gonna need some work to get this baby purring again. But hey, that's part of the fun, right? Taking a classic car and bringing it back to its former glory. The odometer shows 65,000 miles, which is pretty low for a car of this age. However, the seller does mention that the odometer has rolled over, so the actual mileage might be higher. But with a clean title and original miles, this Corvette has got a lot of potential. The seller is asking $5,000 or best offer for this 1977 Stingray. Considering the work it needs, that might seem a bit steep. But when you think about the value of a classic Corvette in today's market, it could be a solid investment for the right buyer. If you're interested in checking out this 77 Corvette, the seller is open to setting up a viewing. Just shoot them a text, and you can see this classic up close and personal. So, there you have it, folks. A 1977 Chevy Corvette Stingray that's waiting for someone to bring it back to life. It might not be in perfect condition, but it's got a lot of character and potential. If you're up for a project and love classic American muscle, this could be the car for you. 18. We've got a real gem from the 70s, a 1976 Chevrolet Vega Cosworth edition, and it's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $6,800. Now let's talk about what makes this Vega so special. Under the hood, you'll find a high-performance Cosworth-designed 4-cylinder engine, paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. This combination was a real game-changer back in the day, giving the Vega some serious pep in its step. The seller mentions that the engine has been modified and comes with many extra parts, which is great news for anyone looking to tinker with this classic compact. It's always nice to have some spare parts on hand, especially for a car that's over 40 years old. The exterior of this Vega is painted in a beautiful blue color, and the seller states that the condition is excellent. That's impressive for a car of this age. However, it's worth noting that the odometer is broken, so the actual mileage is unknown. The ad states that it shows 94,000 miles, but there's no way to verify that without fixing the odometer. One thing to keep in mind is that while the seller says the car runs very well, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making a purchase. With a car this old, there could be some hidden issues that aren't immediately apparent. Overall, this 1976 Chevrolet Vega Cosworth edition seems like a solid choice for anyone in the market for a classic compact with a bit of extra oomph. The modifications and extra parts are a nice bonus, and the excellent condition of the exterior is definitely a selling point. Just be sure to do your due diligence and get a good look at the car before making an offer. So, if you're ready to take on a classic Vega with some serious potential, head on over to Craigslist and check out this 1976 Cosworth edition. With a clean title and a price tag of just $6,800, it could be the perfect addition to your garage. 19. We're taking a closer look at a stunning 1967 Ford Galaxy 500 convertible that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at just $9,000, and let me tell you, it's worth every penny. First off, can we talk about that color? The blue paint job is absolutely gorgeous and really makes this classic stand out from the crowd. The seller mentions that the car is in excellent condition, and from what I can see in the video, It looks like it's been well maintained over the years. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 390 V8 engine that the seller says purrs like a kitten. With only 52,000 miles on the odometer, this Galaxy 500 has plenty of life left in it. And with a clean title and automatic transmission, it's ready to hit the road whenever you are. One of the coolest features of this convertible is the brand new AirPower roof. The seller even includes a video showing how easily it goes up and down. It's always nice to have a convertible that actually works as it should. Now, the seller does mention a couple of minor issues. The brand new carpet needs to be finalized around the edges, and the passenger seat needs to be bolted down. But honestly, those are pretty easy fixes that shouldn't take too much time or effort. If you're not local to the seller, don't worry. They're offering delivery for just $1.25 per mile anywhere in the USA. And if you're international, they can even quote you a price for shipping worldwide. That's some serious dedication to getting this classic into the hands of its new owner. Overall, this 1967 Ford Galaxy 500 convertible seems like an absolute steal at just $9,000. With its stunning blue paint job, powerful V8 engine, and brand new AirPower roof, it's got all the makings of a true classic. And with the seller's willingness to deliver or ship, it's accessible to enthusiasts all over the world. 20. We've got a real treat for you. A 1979 Chevrolet Corvette that's almost fully restored and ready for a new owner. This classic beauty is up for sale on Craigslist for $15,000, and it's definitely worth a closer look. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Corvette. The seller states that it's in excellent condition, but also mentions that it needs some finishing touches to be fully restored. From the photos, you can see that the car looks great, with a stunning red paint job that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 350 cubic inch V8 engine with a 4-barrel carburetor, paired with an automatic transmission. This classic combination is sure to provide plenty of thrills on the open road. And with just 95,000 miles on the odometer, this Corvette has plenty of life left in it. Now, the seller does mention that the car needs some finishing up to be fully restored. But the good news is that they're supplying all the necessary parts to go along with the car, plus some extras. So, if you're handy with a wrench and have some experience with classic car restoration, this could be the perfect project for you. One thing to keep in mind is that the seller is asking potential buyers to leave a phone number and name, and they'll contact you as soon as possible. They also mention not to contact them with any nonsense, which is understandable given the value of this classic car. Overall, this 1979 Chevrolet Corvette seems like a great opportunity for someone looking for a classic sports car that's almost fully restored. With its powerful V8 engine, stunning red paint job, and clean title, it's got all the makings of a true American classic. And with the seller supplying all the necessary parts to finish the restoration, it could be a fun and rewarding project for the right buyer. So if you're in the market for a classic Corvette that's almost ready to hit the road, be sure to check out this 1979 model on Craigslist. Just be sure to leave your contact information and be prepared to talk seriously about this incredible opportunity. With a little bit of work and some TLC, this Corvette could be the car of your dreams.